Hey, hey, friends, welcome. It's always so wonderful to be here with you. I'm always grateful because I know there are really so many other places that you can be, and you're here with us. So if you are watching us now, or the replay, or listening, just know that I'm very thankful and grateful because I know there are so many other places you can be. And please subscribe, like, and share so we can continue to bring you incredible guests like my amazing guest today. I'm really excited to share this amazing guest with you today. And as always, it's amazing to be able to connect with incredible people from my communities and circles who overcome challenges and create amazing. They inspire me every single time. And I hope they inspire you as well, because I do believe that anything is possible. And my guests definitely teach us that. Today, my incredible guest is John Petrelli. John has been a professional fitness coach for over 30 years, having worked alongside some of the biggest names in the entertainment industry, from Grammy-Award-winning recording artists to A-list Hollywood actors. Not bad when you consider at 18, John seemed bound for jail or the morgue. In 2021, John's life took an unexpected turn when he became paralyzed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare autoimmune disease that landed him in the ICU. With a lifestyle so heavily dependent on a physical health and well being, John needed to rely on his mental strength to overcome this disease. Through this experience, John penned his first book, Confessions of a Hollywood Trainer, an instant Amazon #1 new release. It's amazing. In 2024, John released his second book, Confessions of a Hollywood Trainer series, the Teen Edition. In April of 2024, John completed his first TEDx talk. Inspired by the challenges he faced, he has dedicated his new lease on life to helping others discover their inner strength and overcome obstacles in their lives. Please help me welcome the amazing John Petrelli. Welcome, John.
Oh, well, thank you. Man, I have a lot to live up to now. That's a very kind introduction. I hope I can fill those shoes. Oh,
Actually,
geez.
after listening to your book, that introduction doesn't do justice. So amazing, amazing story. I loved it. It
Thank you.
made me laugh and cry. Like I mentioned earlier, I love the podcast style of the Audible. Um, it was entertaining and yes, so fun.
Oh, I'm glad it can bring up those emotions. It
Yeah.
was part of my life when I was younger. From the book that I didn't have a variety of emotions. I kind of gravitated towards a couple of them, like anger and frustration, and lived there. But yeah, I'm so glad. I feel honored that you read it.
Oh, I did. And again, it's amazing because anything is possible, because you talk about, this young boy coming out of a small town in New York and then moving to Hollywood and really making incredible, strides for yourself. Did you ever imagine that in growing up as a young child, that you'd move west to California to Hollywood all the way from New York?
Wow. At one point, absolutely not. And then at another point, I never even questioned it. Like it was almost great that I had ignorance about it because I didn't know that all that was involved. I was just like, it's just simple. I'll get out there and do all that. And so I think there was some power in not knowing, because if I really realized all the different things hurdles I had to jump through, maybe it would have deterred me. So
Interesting.
yes and no are true. Yeah.
Interesting. So do you just had would you say you just had conviction that you knew that no matter what, you'd be okay?
Yeah, there was some, you see in the book, there was a time where I think I went from a boy to a man, and I had to test myself to see if I would be okay. There's a point in the book where I come down with E. coli poisoning. I get in a car wreck, and my sister and my mom send me checks. And now this may not seem like a lot of money to people, but at the time it was $300 for one and $500 for the other check. And I looked at those checks, and it would have been easy to cash them. And I said to myself at 20 years old or 21, and I go, if I can't make it on my own, I probably don't deserve to be here. And I have those checks. I saved them to this day. I wonder if I cashed them now, if it'd still be good.
And I remember that part in the story because you made a decision, And you said, and like you said, that was a pivotal point where you felt like, okay, if I'm going to do this and be a man, like I'm not taking this, even though it wouldn't have been, you know, they were being kind and giving, and it wasn't like you were calling home every week. You were making it on your own.
Yeah, and that's one of my flaws too, is so difficult for me to accept help, and I've been working on that, and I feel
Oh,
much more comfortable giving it. I like to be on the other side of the table.
ditto.
Yeah, so
Me too.
and it was tough, and in that moment though, it worked because I had to put my feet in the ground and like I had to burn the boats and go, "This is it, man. Let's find out what we're made of."
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, it's wild how we have those moments. And a lot of times, maybe we'll get into some of this, but like I find that those toughest moments, like you and I'm reminiscing about it. You kind of, I think, respect the fact of what happened. But at the time, it was one of the toughest moments. But I look back and it's one of my best moments. And I can do that point in and point again. Like I go through this tough time in my life and it sucks. But then when I get out of it and I can look back, I'm like, man, that was a moment right there.
Yes. And the moment that you're talking about, you had just gotten your training, your fitness training certification, like you're feeling like you were on top of the world, you had a great job, and you did that in a short period of time, and then you get into this car accident, the car gets totaled, and it feels like a setback. However, now that you look back, it wasn't a setback.
It wasn't at all. I mean, it hit the pause button for a second, but it made me be creative. It made me be resilient. And yeah, it made me who I am. Like I can't all the crap that I went through of getting arrested and doing all these different things and almost dying and being paralyzed is the fabric of who I am now. And I used to be embarrassed of all that stuff. Like I never told anybody I got arrested. It's something I kept in a deep, dark place and I was ashamed of. And now I realize, hey, I'm not the only one to screw up.
That's
Maybe
right.
other people haven't been arrested, but they've done their thing and maybe they can get some relate to it and find something of value of it. So it's the fabric who I am. I can't deny it.
And I love and I appreciate that authenticity, because we talk about doing the deep work and the healing. And why is it so important for us to face, as we call them, our demons? And really, there's so much shame, around, because we all have stuff. Why is it important for us to face our demons and bring that up
My
to
opinion on
people?
it, you got to
Yes.
have the truth.
Hmm.
You can't where are you working from if you want to make improvements, you got to have a place of truth where you're working from and to push on from there. And I for a long time I didn't have that truth. So these things that I kept down inside would peer up in different points in my life when other stress points came up because I never dealt with it. I never, you know, you, you got like I'm a trainer and I help people move on physically, but you also have to do it emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all those things,
Yes.
right? And you got to be able to let the past be the past and not have it harbor you and be ashamed of it, but own it. So you got to heal on all those other levels, just like you have to heal physically.
Totally. So for someone who's watching, because sometimes you say the work, what does that mean? Like someone who's watching and they know there's something off. They have to dig deep and face. Like what's one step that they can take to start that process?
Forgiveness of yourself,
Hmm.
forgiveness of other people you believe have scorned you. You got to give yourself latitude. You got to give yourself forgiveness because we're human. We all
Yes.
make mistakes. I'm not Superman.
No, no, I'm not superwoman either, but I know in my perfectionistic ideologies that growing up, I believe that I had to be superwoman or else I was not good enough.
So I'm not familiar with Superwoman, but I know Superman has kryptonite. So every superhero has a flaw,
Yes.
right? There's no one that's perfect. It wouldn't be relatable.
No, it's not. And it's also self-sabotage. Um, and so going back to doing the work and facing our demons, number one, you said forgiveness. And you coming up, like you said, you had that anger and that rage, and that's oftentimes how you dealt with situations. When was the turning point where you learned to, okay, let me step back not that we can't feel anger and rage. It's a place. It kind of, sometimes it motivates us. But
Mhm.
where did the flip come where you realize, like, okay, there has to be forgiveness here. It's more powerful.
I don't know if I ever forgive myself fully until after I was dealt with Guillain-Barré syndrome and being
Mm,
paralyzed, and I had to slow everything down
mm,
and go through those dark places in my mind because I couldn't move. Maybe a lot of times my coping mechanism is being physical, and
yeah.
that was all shut down. And I had 10 days of where I just couldn't use anything but my mind and my imagination. And I
Mm,
think that was the place where I started. And then being able to talk about it, people would ask me, I did some different podcasts on my book, and these things would come up. And man, just putting it in my book was so hard. I was embarrassed and I had to take a big, deep breath and jump into deep water and go, okay, if I'm going to be honest and I want people to have a takeaway from this that is tangible and relatable, I can't hide my BS. I can't hide all my past. And I have to just go, I'm going to be honest that some of this is ugly and I'm not proud of it, but it made me who I am today. I cannot take it back in any shape or form. So that I feel like the most powerful thing that I can do is to learn from it and help others with it.
mm.
And so that's when I really started owning it and healing from it.
Ah, I love that. So just owning. And they say own our mess.
Yeah.
And then the power. So what I heard you say is, like, when you own it, and I've heard this before, like when we own it and say, okay, yes, this is my mess. This is, things that I've done in my past. I'm not proud of it. Then the power, it takes away the power it has over us, the hold it has on us.
Yeah.
And one thing that's so powerful, like you said, like you were paralyzed and you weren't able to move. I felt for you, like listening to that part of the story, yet you refused to go down. And so there was a moment, like, I have a wife and young kids, and I'm not going down. And that's when you implemented, the mindset and the vision. But you probably been doing mindset and vision work from before, because you wouldn't do as successful as you are if that wasn't something that you already believed in. The mindset is huge, and visioning. I'm all for.
Grace, you're smart, girl. You're
I'm not that smart.
no, you are. Don't say that. So all those pitfalls that I had in my life, almost drowning, getting arrested, doing all these different things, unbeknownst to me, in my belief right now, were firmly preparing me for the biggest challenge of being paralyzed. If I had a soft life, if I hadn't dealt with all those challenges, the day they're pushing me in a wheelchair down the ICU and I'm looking down the corridor and I see all these people in different states of disarray and they don't know really what's going on with me 100% at that time. There were so many opportunities for me to go, why is this happening to me? Woe is me, being angry and go back to those old emotions I had. But all that stuff that I went through was preparing me for that moment. And maybe I don't make it out of there if I hadn't had
Yeah.
all that beauty happen to me earlier.
Mm.
Right?
So would you say when we look back at our life, right, then all the dots start connecting and it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you right now probably if that hadn't happened, right? I don't have this big thing happening. I don't do the book. You don't read it. You in some way don't relate to it. And here we are, hopefully
Right.
putting our message to help other people, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I love. And I want to actually, at the end of, I loved your daily prayer. And at the end, I would love for you to share that with us. But
Sure.
um, and that's what it's about. It's about, the message and getting the message out there. And so one thing that you talked about is, and I can totally relate to this, is getting addicted to the growth and feeling amazing.
Yeah.
It's addicting.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to mess with my mojo.
Yeah. It is addicting. I feel like different things in life are addicting. And I know that I have that type of personality where, man, I get hyper focused on something and forget it. I'm never the most talented person, but you're gonna have a tough time getting me to quit or outlasting me. And the fact that if somebody does work on doing that, it helps me even more. So it's addictive, and I'm just glad that I'm addicted to something that is positive. I'm
Yes.
addicted to something that is going to bring hopefully some beauty to the world and help other people realize what their purpose is, or just help even give them one nugget.
Yes, yes. And you've definitely been amazing in showing us that our past doesn't define us, and we can go through very hard times and come out on the other side using, like you said, our mindset and our imagination. Um, Something that I also loved was we can picture a version of ourselves that is beyond circumstances and see it clearly. Pulled that from the book.
Did I
Talk to
write
us about that. You did.
that? Oh, I don't know if you've ever had this, Grace, but there's points in my life also where I couldn't see that. Like, I couldn't see past the moment. I was so angry at something or so caught up in this.
I've been there.
Yeah. And it's tough, right? And we could see the big picture. Man, can I tell you a story of something that just happened to me recently?
I love stories.
All right. I was in Nashville. I'm currently working with someone that is on in the book, Sebastian, and we're traveling.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about Sebastian. You guys were just here last weekend.
Yeah, where's here? Northern Cal?
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area, and I
That's right.
missed
I
the
was just
show.
there. I came back Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed the show, but
Oh,
I
I
love
didn't even think of
Nashville.
it. Oh, I would have
Yeah,
had you out at the show.
totally. Next time, I'm totally there.
All right, hit me up
Yes,
next time.
I'm gonna
I
hit
will
you
do
up.
everything I can to hook you up.
All right.
So we're in Nashville. I've never told anybody this, but I'm up on top of this hotel and I'm working out. Or first, I like to get my stuff done early in the morning, and it's beautiful. Like, there is the Nissan Center over here. There's this park and a dog park and
I
people in
love
grass.
Nashville. I know exactly what you're
You know what
talking
I'm talking about? The river's right there,
Yes, it's
and then
awesome.
there's an outdoor amphitheater. It's like
Yep.
it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And I'm jumping rope and I'm looking at this and I'm taking this beauty in, because sometimes in life I haven't stopped to take in the beauty.
Oh, yes.
I see a guy on a park bench that I kind of hone in on, and I could tell he's in a tough spot in his life, and he's all like slumped over, like literally slumped over where his head is below his knees, and he's looking at the ground, and there's scattered bottles of alcohol on the ground. And I go, man, I haven't necessarily been there with the alcohol side, but his view is this big, right? He's looking at the concrete, and he can't probably see all the beauty around that. I just happen to have the perspective because I'm at the top of this building. And I'm like, how many times in my life have I not taken the beauty in that's all around me because my perspective was that big, like
Ah,
this big? And I'm like, man, that's the guy I want to go and help. That's the guy, because I know that perspective. And unfortunately, I'm guilty of this. And I feel like, everyone can be guilty of this. We go through life sometimes being so hyper focused on something that negative happened or whatnot. And there's beauty all around us, and life is short, and we got to
yes.
take it in.
For sure. I feel you. And I make a conscious effort like to live that lifestyle. However, sometimes like my ego gets the best of me and then I start ruminating on something that didn't work or didn't go my way, and I'm like, what is wrong? Like, intellectually that ruminating on that is going to take you away from your goal. So I make an effort, focus on your future self. But like you said earlier, like, we're human and our brain is wired a certain way. But we can make that shift. It just has to be conscious.
I'm writing down notes from you. I don't know if I ever have anybody have notes, but I'm writing down notes that you're giving me. I'm going to use this stuff.
So definitely when we got to hang out when we come out to Austin. I know you'd get along great with Mike, which brings me to I love the story about going to the club on your 21st birthday and just seeing the beautiful girl across the way who eventually becomes your wife, and you've been together for decades, and that's so beautiful. And I wanted to ask you, like, what is your secret to having a long-term, happy relationship?
Oh, it's a great question. I think one of the keys are, I found a beautiful girl with poor eyesight, so she can't really see what I look like.
You're silly.
And she has a heart of gold. You know,
I love
listen,
her. It's from the book. I'm like, oh my God, I love Cheyenne.
did you hear that, baby? She just walked in the house with
Uh-huh.
oldest, our oldest son. You know, I'm working on this all the time, and I am by no means have it mastered. But the thing that I try to work on is listening. I try to work on communication, and in life in general, there's a point in my life where I never took any other person's point of view. What we all want to be happy. We all, for the most part, want to enjoy life. We want these things, these basic things. And I never took into perspective the other person. So now I try to go, okay, what does this other person want? And how do I help them meet that? And I don't have to be right. I think one of the things that had got me in pitfalls before is I was so fixated on being right. And somebody told me this before, and maybe you've heard it. It's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? So where do you want to draw your line in the sand, right? What do you want to fight over?
Is it worth it?
Exactly.
Is it worth it?
Exactly.
Most of the time it's not. It's just, again, it goes back to the ego, our ego.
Yeah.
And falling on the sword. That's what, my instructor used to say. Like, what's more, just fall on the sword. It's give the person the grace. And once you do that, you're right. It makes a difference.
It does. Now, when you say your instructor, did you used to do sword fighting and your instructor was like, don't fall on the sword?
So it was actually when I was going back to coaching, and he used it as a metaphor. Like,
Yeah.
if you're in
Yeah.
a situation with someone and, they, again, you're going to be right or wrong. He said, just fall on the sword. Take it for the team.
I love that.
Yeah. Fall on the sword, take it for the team. And like you said, pick your battles. And it does, because you're right. It's a communication, and you don't always have to be right, because there could be two rights,
Yeah, for sure.
you know. But I love that, because and it was so cute. I just loved, and then after, you're on the reality show, how you proposed on TV. It was beautiful to watch how everything unfolded. So
Oh,
I definitely had to ask that.
oh,
Uh,
thank you.
so something I want to ask you about this, the hustle and grind, because I'm a hustle and grind girl. I burnt myself out. And then I started learning, okay, well, now be present and be in the flow and attract and manifest. And they both work. Um, However, I've learned, and I want your perspective on this. Can it just be hustle and grind and just be present? Is there a way that we could do both?
I think it's necessary to do both, right? There's a yin and yang. I
Uh,
do jujitsu, and I don't know if you're familiar with jujitsu, but it's so much like some of the most dangerous people that are so proficient in dismantling another human being are the kindest, right? Because we don't have anything to worry about when it comes to physical confrontations. I love jujitsu because it taught me more about flowing and
mhm.
feeling energy and going, okay, this flow is also very powerful. I can use this energy and go here. I don't have to put out energy. There's energy coming in and I can flow with that. So yeah, but then there's days where I got to train and I got to do different things or life and you got to grind. You got to stay up late. And
Yeah.
that's what that situation calls for.
Yes.
But so I think if you had too much of either one of those, you're going to burn out. If you're just doing grinding, you're just doing hustle. I'm guilty of that.
I
And then
am.
you can't sit back and just drink margaritas.
Right.
Right?
That's right. So it needs a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And honestly, if I'm going to be transparent, I do. I love the hustle and grind. It's fun.
Tell me more, Grace. Let me hear this.
It's fun because, like you said before, you get addicted to feeling good, and like when you're hustling, grinding, you're going and you see the results, and and getting addicted to like being present, like you said, the flow, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the flow because then when you're in dealing with being paralyzed, you started talking about mindset and getting into that mindset, and you started visualizing and listening to Ziggy Marley, which I love that because that was one of my favorite concerts in Jamaica. That was the only time my husband had tapped me out. He's like, "You got to go. Like, time up for you."
You got tapped out. Ziggy Marley. I'm going to tell him that. That's funny. Yeah. You know, we deal so much in like we think is power. I don't want to put it on anybody else of power in physicality. But I'm a true believer at this point in my mind that your mentality is the most powerful thing. Your mind is the most powerful computer we have. It controls everything. And I don't care how much physical stuff you do. If your mind isn't right, there's eventually going to be a crack in the pool lining and the water is going to leak out.
I
Yeah.
agree. I really agree. And I've taken it from experience. How much do because you're an athlete, you're a trainer, you're an athlete. And how important is that the mindset, mental performance to achieving the physical fitness?
It's everything. It's
Exactly.
everything. I mean, I start every day off with my mind first before I do anything physical.
Mhm.
And I visualize things. I do meditation. I do breath work. It's everything. And to think, look at, I think most people understand that you can't normally call upon something physical in a time of need if you haven't been practicing the physical. It would be ridiculous for me to think that I can get in a life and death situation and I've only been sitting on the couch my whole life and haven't done any physical or any training or learned to be a paramedic or any of that stuff, right? It's also crazy in my mind to believe that when a stressful mental situation comes up, if you haven't been preparing all the time by taking the time to meditate, by taking the time to slow your mind down, by doing breath work, that when in that time of need, you can call upon that,
Ugh,
right?
amen.
Because you have to be calm in chaotic situations to see clearly, to find a path forward.
That was amazing. Yes. So we're preparing. We're constantly preparing for the inevitable challenges of life.
We're preparing for life. You got it.
And so I love this now because I'm thinking, it's like you can't just be mentally fit or emotionally fit or spiritually fit or physically fit, like or financially fit. It all goes together hand in hand. And so that can feel like overwhelming. Like, oh my God, that's a lot of, things that I have to do to get, emotionally, mentally, physically, spirit, financially fit. So would you say that once we start focusing on one area of our lives, would it trickle down to other areas?
I mean, do you feel that way? I do. And I feel like go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I do, but it feels sometimes overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming if you let it be overwhelming, or you could take a step back and go, man, this is the process.
Mm,
I don't have to let it overwhelm me. Let's chunk this out. And I believe like my body, my life, I'm in a constant state of, hey man, I might be focusing a lot in this area right now. And it's gonna put me out of balance. And at this point I go, I'm gonna have that conversation with myself ahead of time. Here's this thing I have to do. I got to be hyper focused. I'm going to still do my best to be healthy and do all the things I need to do. But then I see at the end of this thing right here, I got to focus on the other parts of my life because I got to come back to this balance. But it's not like, even at this point, Grace, like my life is ever this balanced wheel that's continually flowing down this imaginary road of smoothness. No, there's always these rocks and bumps, and I'm going, okay, I did this here. Now I got to add a little bit of this color here to this painting. I got to add a little bit of this color here to this painting. I got to take a step back. Maybe I need to incorporate someone like Grace Redman in here to help me with this, that, or that. I got to bring a coach in. And, you're always trying to just do this balancing act, but there's a beauty to that. There
mm.
is a beauty to that if you allow it to happen and just accept it.
That feels like the flow,
Yeah.
the acceptance, and patience. Sometimes I want to be up at the top of the Kilimanjaro like right now,
Right now, right now, if not yesterday. Oh, I know about that, girl.
right?
Yeah,
But then I wouldn't be ready for it. What you know, would you have been ready for everything that you're doing now had you not had the experience you had back in 2021?
absolutely not.
Mm.
You're referring to GBS.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have. All the things in life got me prepared for that, and that got me prepared to go to another level. And the thing that kept me sane in the ICU was being present. I couldn't worry about what was going to happen. I had to be in the moment present, and I couldn't worry about, oh, woe is me. This has happened to me. And I
Mm.
just had to go like literally minute by minute. And that's why I did the praying. That's why I listened to Ziggy. That's why I did breath work, because it kept me here. And I intentionally said this before, like, and you heard it in the book. People might think I'm crazy, and I don't want to discount Western medicine at all. It has its place. My doctors, nurses were amazing. But I know that me visualizing my body healing and going through all this, if it did anything, it was to keep me present and keep me from going into a dark place. But I believe it actually helped me heal. Yeah. So I think it's
I'm with you
important.
on that 1000%. And I'm so happy that you brought that up because I think it's such, I'm getting emotional. I think it's such an important topic. And I do not want to bash Western medicine at all because I'm also very grateful for Western medicine. And I believe that we absolutely have a hand in our health, and we should be our own advocate. Because like you, I had an experience where it was actually my naturopath told me that I would never be the same again. My health would decline after I had a health scare, and I said no. Not. She said, well, I have other clients that after they had, this situation, this is what happened to them. I said, that's not me. And, if I didn't have the mindset that and she's still like, I was like, what? But if it wasn't for my mindset and, all the work, like all the work I've done to this point in my physical fitness, then, and I allowed that to get in my mind and be like, I'm never going to be the same again. I wouldn't be sitting in front of you right now. And so it's important to, yes, Western medicine has its place and we have to be our own advocate, and our mind absolutely helps in our healing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In studies, we talked about this. We did a little chat beforehand a couple weeks ago. And placebo. Did we talk about placebo?
I don't know if we did, but I'm please more, say more.
Yeah, it's this a known fact. This isn't my mumbo jumbo that they give people placebos, and they know that there is a certain effect from the placebo that can push people in the right direction, whether it's 10%, 15%, but they've given them nothing more than sugar water or a sugar pill. And now they see some results because they believe they've had some medication. So what if you implant that medication, that seed yourself, in to help yourself? And also on the flip side, think about what it can do in a negative effect if you allow your mind to go in that direction, in the placebo effect of going, man, I can't make it out of here. They said I can't. There's no way, no one's done this before. I've never faced a challenge like this before. And you feed your mind that. So if the
Yeah,
placebo effect can help, we know it can bring you back. So direct your
absolutely.
mind.
I love how you said feed yourself. So feeding yourself, what if I am feeling better than I ever have felt, instead of what if I'm never feeling again good
Yeah.
again. I love that. The other thing I love is when your son was in the hospital, and I was so grateful, that everything, ended up well. You went to the, cafeteria because you're hungry, you wanted to eat something, and you're like, okay, there is nothing here that I could eat. So what I loved also is you talked about like feeding our bodies with healthy nutrients, because when we feed our body, it feeds our mind. So I love how you correlated it all together. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because all of this fitness, it's not just one piece.
It's not. There's so many elements. You really did read the book. I don't even think I read the book that well. You're awesome. Um, my son Rocco, he's in the other room watching TV. There's a couple things about Rocco. Man, he was born with clubfoot. Okay. I don't even remember if I mentioned that in the book. His foot was turned 180 degrees in and is facing his body. And he went through a bunch of surgeries and was casted from the time he was like 2 weeks old. And he's got one leg that is longer than the other by far. And that kid has used that. And I'm not saying this because I'm a proud dad. I am a proud dad, but this is a reality. But he's one of the best pitchers now because of the unique anomalies on his body that he was able to somehow turn around. And now when he gets on the mound pitching, he throws heat. And people are like, oh my God, how's that possible? And we know it's in a way connected. But what you're referencing is he was about 2 years old, I think. And he came down with a thing called scalded skin staph syndrome. He likely had touched something on a plane and put it in his mouth. Kids are always putting stuff in their mouth. And he had lesions over burnt. They called it scalded skin because it looks like a burn victim. And he had lesions over like 80, 90% of his body, his eyelids, his nose, his lips. And this all happened in like the course of 24 hours. And they actually brought the CDC in to examine him because it's so rare. And I went we were staying there. We weren't leaving the hospital. We were sleeping there with him. There was no way we're going to leave our 2-year-old who can't process all this. He's going through all these different things. And we went to the cafeteria and I'm like, man, these caregivers that we so need and need to be so grateful for, our doctors, our nurses, the person that cleans the room, everybody. How are they going to be on their top of their game when they're eating chicken fingers and French fries that been under a heat lamp for 2 days? And my Italian heritage and my mom and my dad being Italian, always feeding people. I'm like, we're going to go get food, and not only are we getting food for us, but these people have a direct correlation to my son potentially getting out of this ICU. And I want to give them the best chance of making the best decision. So we went and got food, and we were like, hey, I don't want to force you guys to eat this, but I just want you to know there's a ton of food here. And we got like smoothies and different healthy food. And they were super grateful. And they were like, and I, you have to nourish your body on so many different levels. And the cellular level is one of them, to give yourself the best opportunity to make it out of the challenging situation you're in. Yeah.
I love that. So it's all connected.
It is.
You're amazing, because in the book you talk about some really extreme situations, like, in Alaska, the boat capsized, you're in the cold water in the dark, and you made it out. Like, just talk to us. That's resilience, and just that's the mental perform. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you just not give up?
I can't give up. And Grace, before I get into this, how did I get out of there? Let's talk about how I got in there.
Well, I mean, I know, the stubbornness you got in there,
So I was chasing for a big part of my life. We all have this fight or flight mentality. And I have to happen an extreme one where it goes fight. And when I feel, it's not that I don't feel fear, I feel it, but instead of retreating from it, I feel more calm going into the fire, because I feel like I can maybe make a difference, control. And if used constructively, I can potentially be someone that runs in a building to save someone or whatnot, because I'm going in there. Used to not its best is me when I felt I was in Alaska. Okay, I'm in a 16-foot welded aluminum boat. I'm by myself. You shouldn't be by yourself. I don't have a radio. And the waves start crashing on the boat, and I start feeling my stomach turn. The sane person goes, let's go fishing tomorrow. You already fished 12 hours today. Maybe it's enough.
The sane person.
Yeah, the sane person does that. Okay. This moron at that point in my life goes, in my head, my internal dialogue is like, you pussy, you're going to turn around from this. Let's find out what's going to happen. You can't handle it. And so I turn the tiller as hard as I can into the waves to see what's going to happen. And you know what happened.
Yeah.
I got rocketed out of the boat. I mean, the centrifugal force of that was insane. And the next thing you know, I'm in the Alaskan waters by myself. It's
in the dark
11 o'clock at night. The sun is setting, and my boat takes off. And I'm not a great swimmer. I got waders on. They're filling up with water. Should never have weight. There's so many things I did wrong. So many. And my waders are sinking me. And all of a sudden I hear something that I can't see above the waves. And it's my boat coming for my head, because I had to tiller turn 100 all the way. And it's doing a full circle, 360 degrees. And the point of the boat literally almost takes my head off. And I got to go under the water to avoid it. And the prop goes over my head. So it's crazy. It's crazy. And I find a way out of it. And here's a problem. Here's a problem with that. Okay. I am so grateful I found it out my way out of there. I had a son at the time. I didn't have 2 kids. I had a son at the time. I got a family. This is not responsible. This is not responsible for me to put myself in that situation, right?
Right.
I would never risk your life or my kid's life, but I didn't take as much care in my own life.
Mm,
Now, it's okay to have bravado and all this stuff, but it needs to be directed. I need to have that directed for good, not taking these nonsense risks. So that all happens. I make it back. And here's where I could have gone, Grace. I could have gone, this is another time where I look death in the face. I've looked down the barrel of guns. I've fallen off Alaskan boats. I've had all these things happen to me, and I made it out again.
yeah,
And part of my mindset is like, fuck, is there anything that can kill me? Let's try this. And that's crazy, right? So we can have something that can be really good, misdirected by a little bit is crazy.
true.
And so, yeah,
Mm,
I just made it out of there. I pulled myself up onto that boat, as you know, and I was sitting
yeah.
there looking up at that moonlight in Alaska by myself when I finally got back to the boat. And I say it in the book, that water in a way cleansed me.
That was such an amazing, beautiful metaphor. I really love that, how you got into that.
You
Talking about
know,
the water cleansing you.
thank you. I've become, I grew up Catholic. I wasn't really religious or anything, and I think these events that have had happen in my life has let me know that there's a higher power guiding me. There's so many
Amen.
ways I should have been dead, and I cannot waste this. I
Amen.
cannot waste these opportunities I had to. Now I have to help people, and so for me, it's really been some awakening moments to understand that for me, my spirituality is part of that spoke in my wheel, and there's something bigger and stronger than I am, and I got to respect that, and
Amen.
I got to ask for power from that. Amen.
Amen to that. I totally believe that 100%. And I love now again, bringing the message out to people. One thing I want to talk about is, you've worked with celebrities. You are also an actor in Hollywood. You're touring with Sebastian right now. So you're really in these elevated places. Now, how can we some people have said to me, you have to be arrogant to get to those levels. I don't know if I believe that. Is there a way that we can cultivate humble confidence as opposed to arrogance to elevate our success?
I've been arrogant. A big part of my life when I was younger, in my 20s, I was arrogant. But underneath that arrogance was somebody that was scared,
Mhm.
fearful all the time. And I had this false bravado on the outside. And you could see, like, oh man, this is a powerful guy in my physicality and everything. But at the core, I was just a scared kid. And so I think through the things that we do in our life that we make a conscious choice to do, whether that is doing a hard task physically, educating ourselves and everything, we can get a humble. I think humble is the powerful word, confidence, because it's okay to be confident. Look,
Yes.
you want to make yourself so good that you are confident, because we need leaders. People
Yeah.
need to look to people for support. And so educate yourself so well, be so physically ready and spiritually ready and mentally ready that when those things come up, you are humbly confident to handle the task. It's much
Oh,
more powerful than arrogant.
oh, I love that. Thank you. That was a beautiful answer. I love that. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're
So
welcome.
it's been amazing. I can't believe I want to be respectful of your time. So I know you've had so many amazing stories, so many incredible people you've worked with. Share one story that you can with us about something, fun with someone fun.
Yeah, oh man, we just had some great stories happen and everything. I'll tell you, oh, there's a kid out
What's
there.
it-
I
Yeah,
hope,
or what's it like touring with Sebastian? That's fun too.
all right, I'll give you this. There's a kid out there that may be entering into a job, a profession, a new school, something that's starting off, or maybe it doesn't have to be a kid. It could be someone my age, 50s or whatever, and trying something new. Here's a fun story. And for me, it's like, do more than you're asked of. Do more than if you want to be valuable, add value, right? If you want to be someone that people call on, add value. So we're touring them with Sebastian. This is back in like 2000, maybe 19. And there's this one leg where we're taking a tour bus and it is snowing out. The roads are bad. We're on a tour bus. I think we're going from Chicago to Indiana, and the tour bus breaks down. Okay. It is on the side of the road. It's overheating. We have this great guy who's an older gentleman as our bus driver. And I've been chatting with him for a couple hours as we're driving. He's a retired sheriff, and now he wants to be around people and have purpose in life. And he's driving his tour bus, and it's amazing. And so he's out there trying to work on the bus. 10 minutes go by, and I'm like, man, it's cold out there. I need to go see what's going on. I got to see if I can help him do whatever. I don't even know what's going on. So I get out there, and he's up to his knees and trying to, the engine's at the back of the bus. It's not in the front like a car engine. And he's underneath there, and he's greasy. And he's like, man, this hose broke and no coolant is going into the engine, and it overheated. And so we're trying to think, how do we connect this hose? And I'm trying to help him connect it. And this is not in my job description or anything of that nature. And I cut my finger on something metal in there. And I'm like, Jesus Christmas. I'm adding to the problem instead of helping. I go inside and I get my first aid kit, and I start wrapping my finger in athletic tape. And I'm like, why don't we just wrap the hose in athletic tape? And it will stop it from leaking and hopefully get enough coolant into the engine. So I come out there, I'm like, dude, you're going to laugh at me. This is crazy, but I have 2 rolls of athletic tape. It's worth a shot. And so me and this 65-year-old retired sheriff's guy, we're underneath there, and we're wrapping the shit out of this hose.
In the snow.
In the snow, traffic's coming by. Everybody's in the bus waiting for another. They had called for a rescue bus to come, because if he doesn't make it to the venue, you're talking, I mean, millions of dollars down. We're supposed to be at a venue. And so we tape that thing up. He gets inside. The temperature of the engine had gone down. And without telling anybody what we had done, he turns the key and the bus starts.
Nice.
And I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
and then he tells Sebastian what had happened. And I'm like, at that point, I feel like I had a job for life. Like, he's
You're
like, you did what? You did
Now you're
what?
MacGyver.
Yeah. And we laughed our butts off about it, and we made it to the venue just in time so he could perform. Think about the tickets they would have had to cancel, all this stuff. And it's just because athletic tape, my crazy mind, and never giving up added some value.
Yeah. Resourcefulness, resilience. And you said they adding value. And it's just, there's a possibility and opportunity in everything.
I love that. I love that, Grace.
You proved that. So it's been so amazing to get to know you, chat with you today. I'm so, so grateful for our interaction. And thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Can you let our audience know how they can find you?
Absolutely, Grace. I echo that sentiment to you. I had done a bunch of podcasts. I hadn't done any more. I kind of cut it off. Just I was focusing on different things that you and I are focusing on. And when you asked me, I felt like it was a sign, okay, let's go back into this. And this has been so special. I am grateful for the fact that you took the time to read my book, that you have mentioned it here. It's a blessing. Thank you for that, my friend. And I'm honored to be here with you. You can reach me at johnpetrelli.com, 5starfitness.com. I'm focusing now on using my voice to help more people, especially like our caregivers, our doctors, our nurses, our firemen, the people that save us in a time of need. And so I'm learning how to use my voice to reach more people. And you'll be hearing hopefully some other things from me in regards to that public speaking. But that's where you can find me, johnpetrelli.com. I'm going to put something out there. I always like to give something back. So if you are a school, if you're a fire department, if you're doctors, nurses, anybody, like, you can hit me up in there. And I give a certain amount of my time, I donate it. And if there's a way that I can donate some of my time to help you, whether it's giving you nutritional information, coming and speaking or whatever, you hit me up and I will do what I can to help the people that help us.
Thank you so much. And I will also include all your information in the links below. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And as always, thank you so much for joining us. I know we got excited today. We went a little bit over, so thank you. And as always, if you are on the replay listening, please share, like, subscribe, so we can continue to bring you incredible guests like John Petrelli. Until next time, I love you and have an incredible day. See you soon.